And just as I do start recording, just make that acknowledgement again of the place that we meet and our actions towards treaty. Thanks again, Kat. So everyone, yes, get lost. It's been a big couple of months. Word has it at council that I've gone a bit rogue, but in truth is I've gone rogue with full support of my line manager, David Leatham, who I again feel a bit guilty about just kicking off, Darren Fuzzard, our chief executive, Christine Henderson, our mayor, right up to Lisa Chesters, our federal MP, who is aware and highly supportive of this program of work that we're undertaking in the collective. And the strength that I have in me right now is this community. My role from day one as Mount Alexander Shire's Cultural Development Officer has always just been to listen. Tell me, guys, what do you need? I came with no agenda. I came with no networks, and I just needed to listen and hear what you needed. What did you need council to do? What role did you need me to play? Hi, Krista.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Krista.
So in playing a facilitation role, that really was something that I had to do, was just listen very deeply, and I continue to this day to do that. And part of that work for me was wanting to put some of the conversations and ideas that I was hearing everybody in these threads and amazing discussions about what was needed here. I needed to get it in writing and chose the state government's renewal of creative state strategy engagement process as a means to gather that information from the community. And that was back in August 2019. Thank you to those of you at the table who fed directly into that, but every one of you and so many more other people did feed into that as well informally. That document, which I hope you've all had a bit of a chance to read through, has absolutely been the legs for me to stand on in the last couple of months, having really heard very loud and clear from the community what is the role that council can play, and particularly the program of work that I coordinate. How can I best invest council's very small amount of money in the incredible value that is Mount Alexander Shire's arts, culture and creative industries. Don't have a lot of money at council. We're a small shire. I think we're officially a large rural shire. 19,500 ratepayers doesn't make for a big budget. And yet in this shire, I've got data to show that we've got the highest rate of creatives and makers per capita in the state of Victoria. And I'd argue that other than some regional communities across the country, that does make us punch above our weight for a large rural shire at a national level. And that is recognised by the state and federal governments. And taking that conversation to our own local council and getting them to understand and recognise that value has been absolutely core to the work that I've done over the last 2.5 years, and get them to understand the broader definitions of that, rather than it just being art on the wall in the Fee Broadway Theatre, for example. It's about cultural identity. How do we access and participate in the ways that we express the things that we value and share as a community? And I very much lent on UNESCO in that space, and just recognising that as a shire we have now got UNESCO Creative City designation through the City of Greater Bendigo's successful bid back last year. In fact, the whole Central Victoria is under UNESCO Creative City designation. And what that city network internationally recognises is community and government work to place culture and creativity at the heart of sustainable development plans. So these are the conversations that I have within council about escalating the role of culture, not as a kind of this nice to have and doesn't that, you know, make the place look pretty and attract some tourists, for example. It's about elevating the role of culture as a core pillar of sustainable development, moving on from the classic triple bottom line of economic, social and environmental outcomes, but raising culture up into that space. And so council and our executive are absolutely across that thinking. And so this work with you today is a part of building that narrative and helping to demonstrate back into not just at local government, but at state and federal government levels too, in a very tangible way, what that value is if invested in. So council has a small budget. 3/4 of it is scooped up into funding agreements with 3 key assets within our community, and acknowledging both Naomi and Krista at the table here, representing 2 of those major investments, and Buddha Historic Home and Garden being the 3rd one. It leaves me with very little money to activate for the rest of the community. And so in part of wanting to talk through today, I really wanted to acknowledge that the investment this represents now has been a long time coming. How do I best use that tiny pocket of money to get the whole community working as well as they can, and being the best that they can be? And that's a really hard ask. So in saying that, this program of work, which I broadly referred to as creative cluster management or creative industries activation, it involves sort of 4 core elements, if you like. There's the community itself. You know, how we work cooperatively together is a big key goal for me, as opposed to me dealing with everybody at an individual enterprise level. I'm going to fall over dead, and was starting to look like that at the beginning of this year. And so shifting how the community kind of works together to provide a really informed conversation between both council but up into government, how I can advocate for you in the collective rather than just hearing those one-on-one issues all the time and needs. Enabling the community to just get on and do that stuff. Sometimes I get those calls, Vicky, you know, can you give me a number for this, or can you help me with grant ideas, or I need a venue. And I just want to say, ask your neighbour, they probably know more than me. So it's a bit that theory that underpins the community. So that's the governance. The funding mechanism is a big issue, as I say. We really are in a rate capped environment. I'm looking at ways that I can attract federal and state investment in an ongoing operational way into this community, but also about attracting private investment into our community as well. So that's a big part of the program of work. The brand and platform side of things, yeah, get lost. Wow, gee whiz, it's been a bit of a wild ride these last 4 weeks around that particular space. Particularly with the brand, the work to date, when I've sort of brought this all rapidly forward, it was the brand I had to swallow, because it was the one thing that I really wanted to engage very broadly with the community on, to really capture everyone's voice and make sure that we shaped up something that we all felt that we could own and love and adopt and celebrate and share and go mad about. And I worked out early on that actually that cluster muster report said so much. It was kind of all there, and again, all the conversations that I'd had. But more than that, actually the process over the last 8 weeks of us working through what are we doing here has helped shape that. And so it's been everybody from going on to, sorry, I've just been a bit distracted there. So going from the way we talk about ourselves, but being bold in even a graphic identity to represent that. It's been a really big challenge, and really looking forward to working through that with you today. Larry O'Toole, can I just say hello? Thank you for coming along. I wasn't sure if Kim was joining you today. I'm sorry that I knew you were maybe going to cram in on the same screen, but just want to say hi to you there. Listen, I have just noted Kath pop up in the chat just saying a bit of a whip round introduction. I do want to do that. That is on my agenda. And then after that, and I do want to keep it pretty quick because I want to leave as much space at the end of, like, I guess, our update for us to just have a general chat. And I would very much welcome if anyone wants to kick back after 5 o'clock. 2 hours on Zoom is a bloody long time, so there's no pressure at all. But please note that, you know, we'll just let the chat go on as long as we want it to this evening. But certainly I would like to do a quick whip round, and I might just get everyone to say hi, and not necessarily who they represent, but just how are you? And maybe even if you've just got like one word or a quick phrase or something that just kind of summarizes what this crazy, wild world has been for you in the last couple of months. I'd love to flick around, and I might skip the team that I've been working with on directly for this at the moment. I'll come back to them in a bit, except for because I'll be getting Sam and Gav and Miles to have a chat, but Rob and Lisa I'll come back to as well. So Jude Anderson, hi. How are you? How are you? Having had a nice Zoom with you and a group recently too. Yeah, just quickly, hey, just say good day.
Pretty good. We've had cancellations and postponements, but they have been replaced by a lot of Zooms. And then I'm in the middle of researching and developing quite a few projects, about 3 or 4. And some of those are with local partners. So I guess the big thing for us is shifting away from national work to working locally. And we've been very lucky in that regard.
Right.
So that's where we're at. We're doing okay.
And locally. Love it. Yep. Thank you. Yep. Can I just ask, Lisa, if you mind just maybe muting everybody, we'll just kind of just cut down the chatter in the background a little bit, and then also maybe leave me unmute, and if just as I'm running around. So I've got Pam Lyons next on my Brady Bunch screen. Hi Pam.
Hi.
How's Malden?
Malden, yes, lovely Malden. That's been like a graveyard, not a soul. I'm doing my best to have as much of the Malden Folk Festival ready, hoping that by the end of October, because our first day is the 30th of October, that it will actually be able to be run, because we desperately need the people in town. The whole town runs on tourism. So we actually need crowds to get the shops back and up and running. So I'm just crossing my fingers. We've lost all of our international acts. Hopefully we can have our interstate acts come. So I can get everything ready, and if necessary, pull it in September. And so without costing too much. So hopefully everyone does the right thing and we'll all be well, and the town will be filled, and Castlemaine will fill, accommodation will fill with our overflow of people coming.
Absolutely, yeah. Pam, and just I think on that, just acknowledging that, you know, we're all having individual conversations as well about how we can all enable each other. So no, thanks Pam, thank you. Doug Falconer, how are ya? Oh, we got another mute. Doug, thanks.
I'm good. I'm here with my tap room hat on today. So obviously all our music programs were curtailed by the pandemic. We're looking at getting music back on in the tap room in August. We're not really going to shoot for much more before that. And we want to kick off with a feature series of local acts. So just getting all of the musicians who've already played in the tap room or who want to play in the tap room from the area to kick the program off again, rather than looking elsewhere. We've been acutely aware during this period that it's the local support that's keeping us afloat, and we're trying to give that love back to the community. So that's where we're at the moment. So we're pretty quiet in the tap room until then. We are doing the odd live stream. I'm doing one in about an hour and a half actually from the tap room, which is a politics in the pub we're going to do. We've been doing pub sing remotely, and we've done a books in the brewery remotely as well. So we're dipping our toe in that water, and it's all working quite well. It's actually getting a bigger audience than the regular events. So it's a little bit,
Yeah, it's brilliant, Doug, and just want to acknowledge Jacqueline Brody Hands with you there and the powerhouse that you guys are, and know that you guys are, you know, with having
I'm doing it all myself. It's me.
all by yourself. Excellent, Doug. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Doug. Mark Anstey, Lot 19. What's going on with you, sir?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
It's been good. It's been the real core of Lot 19 has continued. The studios are thriving as personal spaces. They operate very well as personal isolation spaces. So the artists who are lucky enough to have a studio are, pursuing their practice in the privacy of their own isolation. So it's been thriving in that way, which makes me very happy. Alongside that, obviously, we cancelled Idle the day before Idle, which was the day that ScoMo was going to go to the footy. So it was way back at the start of all of that. And since then, you know, we've lost a full program of exhibitions and associated events, public events. But in a way, that's been a relief, I guess, because now we get to hunker down into our core business, which is obviously our arts practice. So how we come out of this, I'm not sure. We're working on a program. We're not expecting to be able to have the large public events, like we're not expecting to reignite Idle even this year. But when we do, it's going to be worth the wait, and we'll be presenting a full arts program as soon as we can safely. But we're not rushing into that either. We're letting it roll for a couple of months, and I'll let all you lovely people re-engage with the public while we sit back a bit longer, I think.
Sounds like a good plan. Thank you. Thanks for coming today. So Braga, hi, tell me about yourself. So nice to meet you. Oh, Lisa, you okay? Yeah, cool.
Hi, yeah, lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited. This is actually my first Zoom. I've really not had much going on since my presenting work nationally and internationally has been cancelled. And as a freelance sort of creative, it's been really hard. I'm really missing, I think, being able to collaborate with people and seeing, you know, fellow creatives around the town, even just singing with people, missing that. So yeah, I've been feeling quite, I think, uncertain and a little disconnected, I think. But also there's a sense of deep hope, I think, and having spent a lot of time just as I live by myself as well, you know, that's a lot of times to do some deep thinking. So yeah, ultimately it's just a lovely thing to be able to sit here with all of you today. So it's a real honour. So thank you.
No, thank you, Braga, for joining us. Thank you. I've got Leonie Van Eyck next on screen for me. How are you, Leonie? Hang on, get Lisa's on it.
There we are.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've been enjoying this space of time of getting to know my daughter, which I don't normally get to do because I'm so busy doing a whole lot of other things. So she's worked out that attention is good for her. So mostly that's what I've been doing, and a bit of filming. I've been managing to do a little bit of filming of some of the locals' work in the area, which has been fun, at a distance, and being able to explore. Yeah, so all the work that I've ever been doing has been scaled right down to a very small amount, which is actually all I can really handle right now.
Yeah.
Being a full-time parent, so yeah. But I'm missing people mostly, getting together. Mm.
Oh yes, I'd love to go to the pub with you all. That'd be nice. Thank you. But sorry, Zoom. Thanks, Leonie. Forrest Kegel, hi, also from Malden.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you all on the screen. I've been having a great time at home, lots more time in the studio, a little bit more connected with people in their head office and more connected with people around the country, albeit all through the screen. But having some interesting conversations around future changes and reimagining things.
Sounds magnificent. Thank you, Forrest. And so Mark Penzak was the official invite, but there was absolutely an embedded invite there extended to the beautiful Eliza Jane Gilchrist. Guys, how you going down Campbell's Creek?
Pretty well. pretty well. Yeah, pretty studio based. So yeah, lots of time in the studio. So yeah, a lot of business as usual in terms of spending time making work, but also a lot of rethinking about, because we engagement is what a lot of our projects involve. So a lot of rethinking about how that's going to happen in the future. And yeah, like what you're saying, Forrest, about reimagining, that's a really exciting part of all these changes.
Yeah, I'm much the same. It's all our work's gone, of course, and I don't know when theatre will start up again. But apart from that, we know nobody who's ill, so we're lucky. But it's been fun having time to educate myself with no objective, you know, or a loose objective that can shift according to what I'm interested in. Usually I'm quite focused, I don't have time, so you go, right, I'm learning that, and now I'm going, oh, I'll learn lots of things. I even tried to learn what GST is.
The accountancy shift. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Eliza Jane. Beautiful Kath Koff. I've been enjoying your chat on Castlemaine Commons, as has I'm sure very many people around the Zoom today. Is there something you want to share with this group?
What have I been up to? I love what Country's been up to. Country's healing. So when everything else is going a little bit crazy, I really love in that business. I've also gone through major life thing exactly the same time as COVID happened. So my husband and I separated. So I'm living in, I've found a place in an Airbnb in the bush that wasn't being utilised. So I've got, so I'm right in the bush. So it's really lovely and very healing. So I have 3 children at home trying to do schooling at home. Plus I'm doing my lecturing at La Trobe. But we changed capacity during this time, realising people needed food. So I chair the Mount Alexander food pantry, realising that people need food. But you know, with you just keep plodding along during this business. I mean, we did Uncle Rick did the wrap, which is pretty cool. Realising that we sort of needed to do it. So my job, I've actually been busier than I normally have, and it's the energy of now is quite interesting. I really hope moving out of this time that lessons have been learnt and that we move into a new way of living as a community as a whole. So that's what I really hope. I really hope we don't go back into what hasn't worked and thinking that that's the way we should be when we've been given this beautiful opportunity to be able to move forward in a new way.
So beautifully put, Kath. Thank you. I'm so pleased to hear. Thank you so much. Yeah, Naomi Cass. Hi, how are ya? How's Melbourne?
Oh well, I haven't seen it really. I just want to acknowledge all the parents and people who are having to juggle things, and hope that we rise out of this with a newfound respect for medicos and teachers. I also really agree with Boris and Kath that we don't return to business as usual. Sometimes I have a failure of imagination and I can't quite see what things will be in the future, and that's quite challenging. I am caught between very, very elderly, very sick parents and children who are overseas. So I find it personally quite challenging. Work has been quite remarkable and both problematic because our camp closed some years ago, much to the chagrin of a huge number of people. So it was really hard to, even although it wasn't our call, but to close the gallery. So we've tried to, like every artistic individual or group, tried to work out how we can shoulder some responsibility or engagement with people's well-being. Just give people things to think about and play with. So we've been doing quite a lot of work in that space. There's also a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and our beautiful people are in and out doing museum type things like significance assessments and building a new website, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. And one of our beautiful people has been attending workshops at Naldarin online, and that's been really amazing for her individually and for us, because she shares with me. So thank you very much, Kath. And we're working with someone else on this screen, and that is just unbelievably exciting and dragging us into this part of the century. We've got a lot of challenges ahead, not least of which, what will it be like? I mean, the same as everyone's facing. What will it be like when we reopen? How will we do that? We can sort of work out most things. It's a big space. The really difficult things is the volunteers, who we are, hand on heart. We couldn't get out of bed in the morning without the volunteers, and it's really very complex. A lot of them are, ancient and magnificent, and they've done a lot of work this year getting themselves together. But how do we all work with volunteers? So, and when you've worked out about the GST, let me know, and we'll do a little something about it.
Thanks, Naomi. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, we're missing you up here, and can't wait to see you when we can get you back up too. So yeah. Suzanne Donisthorpe, hello. Just Lisa's on it. She hasn't got the same screen as me. How are you, Suzanne?
I'm very well, thank you. How is everybody? Good to see you all, looking all sparky and bright-eyed on the Zoom. Things have been going well. The radio station has not been closed. We are essential. And that's actually been really interesting to see how the community has responded. We've been, there's been more people listening, I think, than ever before. And we're getting a lot of great feedback from the community that the value of a radio station, a local radio station, has been really made more apparent, I think, in this kind of day and age. We've had people who have not been coming into the studio because they feel too frail to come in, which has been interesting, but that's also meant that a lot of people's skills have really improved. Like GST is nothing compared to remote broadcasting skills. They've gone through the roof. People have figured out mic levels in a way that they just never really did beforehand. That kind of stuff been excellent. But we've been trying to reach out to the community. We've got Radiothon coming up, by the way, starting on the 20th of June. So that will be happening. I think we're opening hopefully with a pub sing gig at the tap room, maybe with people, maybe with not. I don't know quite if we can or not, depending on how the restrictions work. The theme is Here Comes the Sun, and we're going to get everybody to sing that particular little ditty. And then the finale will be a gig at the Theatre Royal with no people, but bands. And I think the idea is to have a radiothon, like an OB from the theatre with the bands, and everyone will be at home or in groups of 5. getting down and dirty, I suppose, together. But what's been really interesting, I reckon, is the sense of the community and how strong it is, and how many people who are, because it's really a great time to reach out and connect to each other. And we've been doing this thing called Lockdown Lowdown, which is a 15-minute community service announcement, I suppose, every morning, straight after CoronaCast, which we've been broadcasting courtesy of the ABC, which has been really great. But the Lockdown Lowdown has brought in all the, we've said to anybody who wants to, advertise what they're doing, if they've changed their business model, if they've got a gig, if they've got whatever they want to talk about. We don't care if they're sponsors or not sponsors, or they're welcome to kind of add their information into the mix, and that goes to air every morning at 8:30 in the morning, or 8:45 in the morning, which is really kind of prime time radio. So that's been a good way of reaching out to the community, and it's been actually very busy, super friggin' busy, because I'm actually doing 3 shows now as well as everything else, because people have dropped out, and we need to kind of keep up the content. But interesting, very interesting, and I think quite lovely in many ways. I know challenging in many ways too, but also definitely has its upside.
Here, Suzanne, I will be belting out "Here Comes the Sun" at the winter solstice. I shall guarantee that. Thank you very much. So Larry O'Toole and Kim Michaelmore, just watching our time, but I definitely want to hear from you guys, and also Krista as well. So I had a lovely catch up with Larry and Kim and yourselves on Friday. I really enjoyed that chat, and a few things to feedback, but tell everyone, how you're going at the moment.
All right. Well, I'll just briefly give you a rundown of where we're at with our Autoplex development from the Castlemaine Hot Rod Centre point of view. Very much in the planning phases, and the whole COVID-19 thing has slowed things down a little, but very exciting times for us, because we're sort of going the other way. We're looking forward to the future. We've got a master plan well underway, with consultants nearly finished that job. Once that comes back in the next month or so, we can then really get into the final planning stages of becoming operational at the former Eddy Street school site. In the meantime, we've been cleaning that site up. We've been working very hard, lots of volunteers in there. We've got it looking spick and span, and it's ready to occupy again, basically, after having been left in a terrible condition when we took it over. But a lot will hinge on the outcome of that master plan, and then our planning process, and then we get to work. Now, a lot of you may not be aware of the fact that there's quite a few spaces up there that are going to become available for all sorts of activities. We're looking forward to working with the festival quite soon to explore some possibilities with them. And a lot of this will be able to happen without interfering with what we're going to do from a trade training and interactive centre point of view. All that can all go on together. So we're looking forward to making this a really exciting hub of activity, and I think everyone will be very surprised when they see the full plans for this place and what's involved. Master plan will outline a lot of that, and that will get publicity when it becomes available. So there's really no sense, I don't think, in trying to explain it now, and it would take too long. Just to introduce ourselves to the rest of the participants here, and Kim, who is actually our executive officer. Everyone in our organisation is voluntary. It's all not-for-profit, and it's a whole scheme based around what our group of people have been able to bring to this community over the last 50 years and take it to another level. At the same time, bringing in all the other community groups who can take part in the whole cultural exercise that it is. From my own personal point of view, our own publishing business has been not badly affected so far. We've been able to continue. We have a very dedicated, loyal following. The one thing we have been able to identify is that those people, especially those that are not working at the moment and are at home, have got time to fill, and they've been using it by communicating with us, and it's been very, very good. It's given us a lot of heart to keep going. But so I'll leave it at that for now. I think we need to get on with this. And
yeah, no, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that. And Kim, look, I might just let Larry speak for the two of you on that, if that's okay.
Cool.
Yeah,
I may have to leave. I may have to leave from time to time. Jim can take that.
Krista and then Justin, give us a snappiest life version, whatever you'd like to say. Krista, talk to us, son.
Hi everyone. Well, we are feeling that there was no festival this year, and however, we had another big milestone where we've just completed our build at the woodshed, which is where I'm sitting right now. So we got handover from the builders on the 2nd of April. So and we moved in sort of shortly after. It's very quiet here. Everyone's still working at home predominantly. I'm still working at home a few days a week and in here a couple days. I've actually got John, our production manager, in here today. So there's just, feels like life. We have been spending a lot of time trying to work out how we're going to sustain our financial situation over the coming months. It's actually looking not too dreary, which is good. We will be able to put on a festival, which is great. How that forms, we do not know yet. So there's lots of contingencies being played out, sort of financial contingencies as well as programming and production contingencies based on how many people we can have in one particular place at any given time. So it's a lot of, say it is quite interesting work, but very unexpected work, and puts us all, we think that it will lift our CVs at the end of it when having to produce a festival post or during COVID, and actually sustain an organization. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at the moment.
I can't wait personally. Yeah, I can't wait to get into the good shed. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I should mention as well. We're not yet open for business, although we wish we were. And we did have quite a lot of interest before this in hiring and tenancy. But we are now sort of starting to call out for interested tenants again in a sort of socially distant co-working office. And then as soon as gatherings are allowed again, we'll obviously hopefully get people starting to be interested again in coming to use the space. But I'll make sure to let everybody know, details about that, and I look forward to seeing everyone down here.
Thank you, Krista. We all look forward to it. So Justin Marshall, lucky last. Give us your snappiest snap, my dear. How are you?
Snappiest snap. Hi everyone. Sorry, I actually had to just jump out before, so I haven't really heard what everyone's had to say, but it's really nice to see everybody's face. So I don't actually know what the original question was.
Just how are you, dear? How are you?
I'm fine. Things have been going all right, I oscillate between, this is the most amazing transition the world's going through. Everything's going to be so much better after all of this, to, oh my God, where are we going to end up? I'm sure everyone feels the same, but yeah, nice to see everyone.
Thanks, Justin. And look, I'm just in the background, just wanting to mark up. So again, that Amy Ferguson, Year 12 student, stopped that mammoth, and also been on Council's Youth Advisory Group, hasn't been able to make it today. Jeff Park, who was here representing Newstead, unfortunately has emailed me saying something urgent's come up. So unfortunately we've lost a bit of a Newstead chat today, but very much looped in with the community down there. Kate Stones, CTC, Red Room Theatre, and also at the State Festival with her education hat on. Hasn't been able to make it here today. Lisa D'Onofrio, Writer's Reign, who's just in the waiting room. Hey, nice timing. And Tim Heath, again with his apologies. Hello, Lisa D'Onofrio. Your ears must have been burning. I was literally just winding up, and we're just having a little quick hello. And how do you want to just give us a minute on how you are? Welcome to the Zoom room.
Yes, good. Oh, good.
Great.
Less than a minute.
You're beautiful. Great. Thank you. I'd just love to see you, Lisa. So yeah, the rest of the crew around the screen here, the wonderful Lisa Mills, Storyland. She's kind of playing whipcracker with the chat and the mics today. And so Lisa, yes, as whipcracker, look, if you've got any just thoughts through the chat today, or you want to send any links or anything that's, you know, just pop it up in the chat. Lisa will capture all of that, and she'll sort of pick up some of the threads and maybe interrupt me or whoever's talking at the time just to kind of feed in anything there. But again, hoping to get a bit of a chat later on, but I'm aware that people need to move on too. So Lisa, thumbs up, you're okay? She's okay, all right. Rob Jennings to my left at We Push Buttons. Fabulous Rob Jennings, who I've been talking to about a web application, some kind of platform for our arts, culture and creative industries for, I don't know, Rob, must be 2 years now.
2 years? Yeah.
You know, has done a lot of work around councils' platforms and obviously many, many players across the community. Rob's not going to maybe have too much of a chat today, but has certainly said, look, if anything falls out of today, particularly around ideas for how to use the platform, the sort of technical requirements of it, please just get in touch with him. Direct is a really efficient way to kind of progress the conversation in that space in terms of the technical build of the space. So that's very much, you know, we've got our whipcracker and Lisa. Rob Jennings is the technical, you know, he's the architect behind the platform and has fed in so many different ways, as has the whole working group. So that's Storyland and We Push Buttons. We've got two other players from Storyland here, Miles Bennett and Gavin Krasner. They're just going to give us the thumbs up because they're going to get to have a rant in a bit, so I'll just keep them on quiet. And Sam Thomas here, Massimano, who Sam reached out to me that Sharkies weekend that Mark Anstey was referring to when Castlemaine Idol was pulled, and are we going to the footy, are we not? And Sam reached out that weekend on the email with an idea, with this just entirely whole of community encompassing concept about how can we shift and continue to celebrate online. And thank you, Sam, for that, because it absolutely triggered the sort of what could potentially have been a hibernating program of work for me, and brought it right to mind and gave me the arms and legs and reach out from the community immediately to say, we can do this. We don't have to just be at the mercy of this. Let's act now. And so I'm eternally grateful for Sam. And it's been incredible for me because I really hadn't been exposed very much to the what Sam does. It was more the how he works. And now, having worked with Sam very closely over the last couple of months, I've only just seen that in absolute beautiful, tangible ways. And I'll let Sam speak to that. So the group that I've just introduced there represent the three key community partners to date that council has made an investment in to get this program of work up and running. That is due to a number of issues, and I've sort of referenced it there in speaking about Sam, particularly around thinking about whole of community outcomes, and in Rob's work across the whole of the community, you know, Storyland operating as a collective in their own right. Within that first week, I think, after the Sharkies weekend, you know, we had our two top web development agencies cooperating, sharing, working across budgets, working across thinking, and it was straight away a test of a demonstration that actually, yeah, what I've heard from the community about working cooperatively is there, it's bubbling under the surface, and we just need to act. And so I really cannot thank that working group enough, who I also want to reference have to date still not seen a dollar in their bank accounts after 8 weeks of blood, sweat and tears. This is not about anyone actually earning any money out of this yet. This is a passion project and a general reach out for the health and well-being of our community as a whole, both now and moving forward. So thank you, thank you, thank you to the team. So I've talked a little bit about the funding model of this program of work, and I'll just touch on it just the last little bit, and then I'll hand over to the team. one of the most exciting things that has happened over the last 2 months that I didn't foresee at the beginning of it is that it looks like that council is going to allow us to build, Sam keeps calling it a community bank. I'm not quite sure what it is, but council will trigger a philanthropic fund for the community to invest in, and anyone else around the world, should you care to help push some buttons around the place. But essentially this is going to be a charitable donation fund in recognising our community's capacity to step up for our creatives at times of need. I'm going to set a target of $25,000 for that fund, which will be held with creative partnerships at a federal level through their Australian Cultural Fund, which I'm hoping they will do match funding for, should we hit that. But I'm really keen to see how that works for the community. Essentially, that will build something that vaguely resembles a circular economy for our creative industries here locally, whereby the community itself can invest directly in getting money right back out the door through a rapid response grant fund to our arts, culture and creative industries and services. And with as few strings around that as I can possibly not attach, to just get money out the door, out to everyone. And that's been one of the big delays in getting this program live, if you like, and bringing it to the table to everyone here, is just making sure that I've been able to land the legislative framework for us as council to essentially hold the community funds, and again to build that as a grant fund. So as we look to launching stage 1 next week, that announcement will come out, and I have been speaking to people individually about that. It is absolutely going to be as open as I can possibly make it, and we'll turn it around as rapidly as we can to ensure that we're just getting money out the door. Council's investment, part of that has gone towards that grant fund. Having said that, it's small at the moment, it's only a total of $10,000, but it's allowing me to leverage at state and federal levels to get additional funds in for that, as well as just noting council's investment of $10,000 in that rapid response fund. I want to acknowledge that I've had agreement across council to carve off 3,000 of that immediately for Naldarin. And that is something, again, that I've wanted to honour in terms of my forward planning for reconciliation, action planning and treaty, and in recognising the role of our First Nations community here, and to underpin their cultural, economic and social well-being through this period. So that's a decision of council there through that. So, but I'm really, really, really excited about this fund. We're sort of toying with the idea of calling it Get Lost Community Grants, because again, looking at the cluster report, hearing about those kind of output-based mechanisms and the language around it, I really wanted to shift that up and work with the community in doing that. So I'm really looking forward to that part of the program of work to create a self-sustaining funding model for our community here. So that's kind of as much as I want to talk too much at the moment about that particular component there. I'd love to flick to Sam Thomas just to talk a little bit around the governance thinking and the cooperative working models here. So Sam, are you okay to just give us a couple of minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thinking on that?
Hey everyone. It's been a crazy time, and I just want to sort of touch into lots of things that people have said, stuff that Kath talked about, stuff that Jude's talked about, Forrest, Leon, everyone. There's this kind of togetherness feeling of actually sharing quite a lot of stuff, even though we've been in our brick boxes or wherever we are, or B&Bs in the bush or wherever it is. Looking at, it started with this proposal for an online festival, but then very quickly turned into using the cluster muster, this listening actually to what was being said from everyone. And there's this great report, and anyone who's got time to read it should have a look at it, because it's got most of you in there. And there was all this visioning of what the Shire could be like for us if we embrace new ways of working, and we break out into a new way of being together, I think, here. And so in this time of being forced to localize and being stuck on our screens and devices, it's kind of had this funny double-edged thing where we're using the internet to actually get to know our neighbors. And that's a funny little twist, because people are getting to know like what's under their nose through this international sort of access point. And the fact that we can focus down on the Mount Alexander Shire has been just quite a sort of almost enlightening experience, because I spent a lot of time traveling around, spent most of my life doing that. And now that I'm within this Shire, I've realized that there's like just an unbelievable, there is it's a never-ending festival happening right here, basically, is sort of how it feels. And if there's ways, if we can design this way of making those decisions so that we don't have to feel like when the grants are announced that there's this elbowing and this sort of cliquey sort of feel around, or that you're either in or you're out kind of. I've experienced that on both sides of the track. I've worked for the State Festival, I've worked for Regional Centre for Culture, but I've also been thrown back out into being back on Job Seeker, worrying about, you know, how I'm going to pay for everything, having a couple of kids. It's just it's too much, actually. It's like an instability that's not sustainable, not for your nervous system, not for your relationships, not for, you know, any of it. It's like, it's just too much of a crazy ride. And I'm not the only one experiencing that, I'm sure. So that's where this call came from a very real place. And so then, therefore, the research that we've been doing into this and referencing all the work that's been done already here and lots of things that have been tried before, that's really now what we need to try and work out is what that decision-making process is going to be like. How are we going to decide who gets what, or what's actually needed? And so it doesn't feel like there's just the same people making those sorts of decisions all the time. So does it rotate as a group? Is there that same sort of sense of ownership about it that maybe a board would have in those more traditional forms of governing a non-for-profit arts project? So we're really, that's where we're at now. And what you're about to see with the app design and the brand design and the whole stuff around that is a tool that we can use so that we're all linked up and all together. But really all of this stuff is about us as people making something better together, like really working cooperatively together and having some sort of impact that isn't just focused on this individualism sort of culture that was created before we had time to stop and realize that that's actually what we were all locked into. So yeah, I'm referencing my upbringing, which was Thatcher Britain, and the way that community art and the work that my parents were doing at the time. I absolutely had the first-hand experience of that changing lives and giving people hope in a very grey and sort of desperate sort of landscape. And we're not there because there's still a lot of privilege around us, but there is this sense now that there's more time for us to listen to each other and slow down and not be running away from actually becoming an activated community, doing and all the stuff that we say we want to do. And so, yeah, I feel like I want to finish with a little quote that my dad always uses. My dad's a storyteller and Britain's first storyteller laureate, one of his many accolades. But he always starts every show that he does with this little phrase, which was, if speaking was as important as listening, we'd have been born with 2 tongues and 1 ear. And for me, so far, this has all been about listening. It's all just been about listening to what's out there, and so that we can try and then step forward and emerge out of this emergency with, like Kath said, hopefully leaving some of the stuff behind that wasn't working for anyone anyway, and seize the opportunity to create a more, a creative experience together.
Sam, Thank you so much. You've triggered for me that I didn't mention something critical around the funding structure too, related to governance. The successful business case with council isn't just for 2019-20. It will actually take us through to 2024. It enables that discretionary funding that I said is available there to underpin that governance and the administration of that governance, because we've had groups run on volunteer steam, and I'm really interested in what's council's role in helping the community to transition to new cooperative working models towards a self-sustaining model, but it's going to take time. And so it is a 3-year funding commitment from council to help enable that. And that's council's investment directly out of my budget is linked to that governance. That doesn't mean Sam's doing it. It's just Sam's just kind of kicking off the conversation right now. He's just so absolutely well placed to do that. How that evolves, what role that is, what kind of organisation that is a really interesting space. And one thing that I do want to say about the platform next week as we go live, in the sign up form, there will be a tick box on there that says, I am interested in helping to shape new cooperative governance models. Please tick it if you are. Please make sure anyone you think might be interested in getting involved in that and having a voice, please get them to sign up and tick that box. So I need to move it on. We've only got 25 minutes officially still going, so I'm going to crack on into asking Miles and Gav from Storyland to share a screen there, which I'll kick off talking through. But we've talked around the funding and the governance, and really just want to move into so those two first elements are about process. These two are about kind of product and output for me. And so, you know, this is a bit of the bells and whistles kind of part of the chat. And again, just any thoughts, please just chuck them in the chat as we go through them, just to capture them. But certainly afterwards, you know, we'll hopefully get this done and can have some sort of formal chat, but please do stick around too if you can. We'll just be here. And so, Miles, Gav, have you got a screen you can share with everybody there? So we'll get out of the gallery view and I'll just get everyone to see this full screen. That should just happen automatically. And I'll flick to Gav and Miles in a sec.
So everybody should be able to see that screen now.
Yeah, no, that's great, guys. Thanks very much. So I'll just get you to flick over to the next screen, and just thank you again, Miles and Gav, because you've been working like dogs to get something that vaguely represents a bit of a presentation to make everyone feel like we've got our act together. Certainly to try to reflect the amount of work that everybody's invested in this. So I've spoken already about those community partners to date, and this I just really needed to ram this home. This is kind of a Storyland presentation, if you like. That's their strength in the partnership, but also just that everybody, and not just these groups, have fed into it. The thinking that is reflected in this document is absolutely community-wide. It reflects 2.5 years of conversations with me, a shed load of conversations and emails over the last 8 weeks. So thanks, guys, so much again. I'm just going to trust you to intuitively click over. So I'm just going to read through the next few screens because you've seen these through your work. So Get Lost is a brand new web application that showcases and cultivates the creative culture, talent and energies connected to Mount Alexander Shire. Get Lost is a place to wander and explore, a place to gather and share, a place to celebrate and innovate. Oh, it's going to be a place to feel good, we hope. Absolutely. And I love this, the thinking that it's our new co-working space, our new virtual venue and our cross-generational multidisciplinary show. The new co-working space is critical around this, even just in everyone speaking earlier on, you know, contact me about this, I want to share this with you. Well, I guess this is our space to maybe not just do that through email, it's through chat, it's through forums, it's through spaces where we can have conversations and build interest in our projects in the collective and start to gather the resources around it. So I do love thinking about the platform, certainly as a co-working space. That's been crucial towards that overall capacity building for our Shire and making sure that we're getting the best out of our resources and mapping those resources that we have here, particularly as we're, you know, well and truly in an economic downturn. So thanks, guys. So we invite our writers, artists, performers, musicians, producers, designers, filmmakers, dressmakers, car makers, gardeners, jewellery makers, I don't care, you know, the creative industries and arts culture, it's about IP, you know, this is about creative thinking. We want people to self-identify in this space. UNESCO's definition is very broad and is very much how I lean into my work. So yeah, we're inviting everyone to get lost, basically. Again, no offence intended. We just kind of figure that it's integral to creative practice and process. And it's actually a great thing. So Miles, I will get you to flick over and just kind of run through the platform thinking and your role specifically, as well as acknowledging, again, Rob Jennings at the table, who kind of, Miles is going to kind of cover off Rob's place in this as well. So thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Vicky. Well, thanks everybody for being here as well. I mean, just to unpack just a little bit of what Get Lost is, it says get lost. We need to get lost to find new things, you know, any new idea. You need to go into a space of the unknown, which is essentially getting lost, to be able to discover something new that works. So this platform is here to be a place to develop and present work. Primarily, it's a place where things can be discovered, where things can be shared, and where people can communicate. So we want it to be very much a communication platform as well as a presentation platform. Even though we're all in a space at the moment where we've been sort of forced into isolation, where it's allowed us as a creative team to look at, well, what are the ways that people can actually connect more, in a sense, using some technologies. We're not saying it's better for sure, but it's like if you're watching a performer live on a live stream, if you're in an audience of a gig or a venue, you wouldn't be able to ask them a question, but on a live stream you can actually ask them a question. So there's sort of this new space that we're looking at, where the audience can become involved with the makers. And ask more personal questions and get a response, and even create some sort of working or creative or co-working relationship, even being an audience member, you know, not just two creatives working together.
Different level of engagement.
It is a different level of engagement. Yeah, so this is our focus initially is about the community, and is about business, and is about arts, and is about arts as business as well. Is about bringing in some new income streams. So building new income streams is a big, it's a big talking point that we've been looking at as Rob's been bringing together these functional elements that will result in a web application or a website. We have been looking at how can we make different income streams. So we're talking about everything from having things linked to, say, Patreon, where you've got a patron, where patrons, you know, might pay $1 a month, $10 a month, $30 a month to get insight into content that isn't fully publicly available. There are ways of creating income with the strength of a group website to draw SEO, search engine optimization. So if people are looking for, oh, who's a great car maker, who's a great artist, who's a great this, who's a great that because of the amount of content on the website and the SEO behind it, that there's more opportunity for our local communities, artists and creatives, to get seen, get found, and potentially sell work, garner interest, etc. So we'll just flick to the next slide and see what that one says. As part of that experience, it's about curating things. So we're looking at a lot of different online technologies like social networks and how people are exposed to content. So it's not just about creating a website that's a directory or your traditional kind of navigational website. We're looking at this website also including a curated walls and spaces where people can discover content. So again, the Get Lost idea is expressed through the way that people can get lost within the site. They can get lost and find content they never expected to find something new, to get exposed to something that they might, which would happen in normal life. You know, when you bump into somebody and they talk about something they're interested in, suddenly you're finding a new interest. So
Yeah.
we're looking at this website being able to provide some of those natural things that we're used to when we're in person-to-person contact as well.
And I'd also like to add, hi everybody. I'd also like to add that the platform, the idea of the platform being in itself an immersive experience and something that actually stands out from the platforms that we all kind of use at the moment is integral to the idea of Get Lost.
So people can watch things, they can see events, performances and more. We're looking at having the ability to ticket events, to have things as premieres, to integrate communication elements within those events so that they feel more like a premiere, and more of an interesting space, not just like watching a YouTube video, something that's got a few more bells and whistles with it. And same with discovering, you know, discovering something is one of the largest elements of the site. It's what can you discover, and learning things. So back to the communication, people might be able to learn how to play the ukulele, or they might be able to learn how to, panel beat, or they might have, do a webinar on, how to sustain yourself as an artist, or forums about how to make my online shop work better, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're building the platform around a really wide range of ideas. Chats and forums, mentioned those, listening to things, sharing knowledge, podcasts, music, arts. And then on the income side, giving something or buying something. And we're looking at in sort of stage 2, which will be, a month or so after launch, having a tips or a claps or a high fives kind of element to the website where a user can distribute micro amounts of currency to things that they like. They see a picture that they like and they're like, oh man, that's great. Here's 20 tips for 20 likes plus, or claps or whatever. And those claps are a portion of actual dollars, and those actual dollars will then go towards that artist. So we still needing to do a certain amount of development behind that to implement something like that. But that's where we're looking at this, is to how can we generate appreciation that actually results in the arts receiving some remuneration.
And that speaks to the idea of, again, creating a user experience that people want to return to. There's certain elements of gamification involved there. And also much further down the track, the ability for participants to actually, sell works and things like that, or sell tickets, as you say. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Miles. Well, hopefully you guys have got the idea of what we're trying to achieve here. We then had the unenviable task of trying to encapsulate this in some kind of brand mark. But before we actually get on and look at the identity, we're going to talk about the brand first. The brand itself is the driver. It's the thing that defines how we interact with a website, how we view a poster on a wall, how we feel about the platform. Our thinking has been influenced by the emerging leadership of our Shire's youth and the care for our country and community. And just very quickly, it came out, I think the idea of this came from a piece that Sam had put together for the 2017, I think it was the 2017, or was it 2015? The State Festival 2017, I believe it was, Sam, with the stuff at the Good Shed. And that really kind of struck a chord with us, and something that we felt we really needed to embrace and speak to. And coupled with the Schools for Climate Change that sort of emergence of that, you know, strong community as well. We felt that that really embodies the energy and the spirit of what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to achieve. The brand is inviting and welcoming. We're a confident and caring bunch, youthful, bright, brave, fun and inspiring, and of course we are creative. And I think it's these values, if you like, that I'd like you to keep top of mind, and I'll remind you of these values as we go through some of the creative work. And of course we value culture, resilience, custodianship, sharing and change, and notably the place that we live. We value our community, past, present and future. We value the shared energy that comes from embracing creativity and culture. We value the contributions from the amazing talent within our Shire. So what we're going to go through now is a real snapshot, and we've already presented like a 40+ page document to council. You are going to see a very, very edited highlight. At some point down the track, we will make available all of the Zoom chats and the much bigger documentation that supports all of this. So we identified 3 concepts. Now, all of the concepts are completely valid and completely applicable to the bigger brand picture. We have 3 concepts because we like to look at nuances within the brand and basically work out where the best fit lays. So we're going to look at Lose Yourself, which is this voyage of discovery, traveling through this gateway, taking a chance to wander through the most creative regionals, one of the most creative regional shires in Australia. We look at Hidden Talents, which is finding the unexpected, realising the creativity, nurturing the development of our creative industries and services. And finally, Grounded, which is a celebration and a caring the rich seam of talent around us, acknowledging the country that feeds us all, a common ground, social and shared experiences. The language is you know, very deliberate in the way that we describe these concepts. And with every creative process, there's a certain amount of research that goes in. And so I think very quickly you'll see how the visual research then relates back to the brand and to the name. In this instance, and we're just going to whiz through these, I think it all kind of will speak for itself. But what you see here is just what we call like a proof of concept. This is not a design work. This is how we reference the material on this board and how we bring it to life, and we take it and we use it in a word mark, or we use it in an icon or a logo, whatever you want to call it. So this is what
sorry, Gav, I'll just jump in there. We specifically, that's the Lose Yourself concept direction, this bit. So it's sort of explored 3 different concepts. Thanks.
Sorry, yes, sorry if that wasn't clear. Thanks, Vicky. And then with the Hidden Talents, again, this was actually a slightly different. This wasn't about being immersed and finding and wandering. This was actually more about everybody's here on display. All very accessible, except you had to kind of hiding, the idea of hiding in plain sight, the idea of just turning a corner and being invited into someone's door. So rather than just wandering down the streets and knocking randomly on a door, the door's open and I'm here, come and see me. And that's the slight difference here. And that sort of manifested itself in a slightly different way. And then finally, the Grounded route, we looked at the idea of using the land. We looked at trees, for example, the roots, and using that visual metaphor as a way in which we develop our creative ideas from within, and where they emerge and where they bloom and blossom. We looked at connections. We looked at the way in which we describe the place that we live in a graphical form. We started looking at the way in which we can literally use the landscape. We can use elements, we can use the language that we are all familiar with and just kind of use it in a slightly different way. We then started to look at these ideas of connections and started to look at the idea and the way in which we could connect the dots, as it were. And this kind of sparked a lot of conversation. And I do want to say that this has been really a collective response and a collective conversation that's been happening. We then realized that the shape of that we were coming up with here actually represented the Shire in some way. And so we embarked on looking at how we could make the Get Lost iconography work in with the boundaries of the Shire, our country, now our place. And so you can see how this begins to take shape. And so very much the idea behind here is, behind these executions, it's not about making things legible. It's about actually taking our audiences on a voyage of discovery, and to a certain extent, making the letter forms not as legible as you might think. It's the idea of being, you know, I guess, bright and fun and inspiring come to the fore here. And it's something that we feel very passionately about. Where's the bravery in presenting the words Get Lost? We want to actually do something that is going to pique interest and is going to actually leave people wanting more. And so this is where we've kind of got to. And we will just say that this is still very much a work in progress. But we feel we are really getting close. But we do welcome and invite your feedback and your responses. One of the things you'll notice is that we've got rid of the little, well, first of all, I should say, the inspiration for this, if it's not clear already, has come from the metro, the tube map, or a version of a tube map. The ideas of bringing the urban into the country, the idea of mixing things up, the idea of actually going where people haven't necessarily gone before in the way in which we are adopting this language and using it for our Shire. We don't have a network or a rail network like a tube network, but we do have a network of tunnels. We do have a network of paths. We do have a network of rivers. We do have a network of country and roads. And so it's really is applicable. So this is where we're at. This is the layers that this approach gives us. This is the opportunity to create an interface, to create a user experience that is in itself an engaging experience, something that adds value to the artists, the musicians, the performers, the car makers, the dressmakers, and everybody that we've spoken about. And we feel this is the level of work and the level of engagement that our end users deserve to showcase the talents within the Shire. I think that's about it for the moment. Yeah. I'm gonna thank you all for listening to me and to Miles and to Sam.
Thank you, guys.
Vicky. And would you like me to keep this on screen, or would you like me to just?
You know what? I think what we might do, Gav, is actually just, if I can get you to stop sharing, thank you. And I'll just pick up on a couple of the points there around it being, I guess, a work in progress, particularly, is that we, certainly everything around this kind of concept is about, I guess, Creative Commons licensing and how do we release this, you know, to breathe and to be used by the community. Council will hold the mark, if you like. It's appropriate that it sits with council as opposed to any other singular organisation at this point. But certainly to enable the widest possible usage and play with it. I really want to share with you my 6-year-old child's response to these kind of early designs when they started to emerge, and he was like, "It's like a playground, Mum, and I can see eyes and I can see poo holes and all this wonderful just play." And even this morning he was looking at the latest iterations and pulling out A3 sheets of paper and designing his own new fonts. There were washing machines that became O's, and stop signs that were G's, and the creativity that this mark was inspiring in my child, and his description of how it made him feel was calm. And frankly, with a child on the spectrum, this is the holy grail for me. How do we tap into our childhood sense of imagination and adventure that we all get sort of squished and squeezed into boxes and defined and siloed over our lives? How do we tap back into that sense of play, which through us managing the impacts of COVID-19 as a test run for what's ahead and more, how do we maintain our sense of joy and play and exploration? And I think we as creatives kind of know that intuitively. How do we start tapping into the resources that are underutilized or not accessed right across our communities? That's really important for us. This isn't just us little arts and culture and creative industries here in our little bubble of the community. This is about reach around and deep into our community. How do we make sure that everybody, as per the UN Charter of Human Rights, has access and can participate in culture as a human right? How is our sense of cultural identity here meaningful for everyone? That's a big ask in a brand identity. And I guess you will have seen, like, it's not immediately legible. We're looking for that fine line between it being a puzzle or being a bit of a game, being an adventure. How does it reveal itself? And also how, once you do know what it says, how do you embrace that? I was really excited to run through that, as Gav mentioned, with council earlier this week. And it was a resounding wow from them. They were really excited, which blew me away. It was so much more than I was expecting, but everybody right across council that we engaged with that process and walked them through that journey. And it was a much bigger journey that we gave to them, because it is about the brand mark being owned by council as much as anything. That they were comfortable with the community-driven nature of that. And that's really important that that's emphasised, so that we imagine people, saying, right guys, cool, well, you've got some vague parameters there, I don't know, roughly the shape of the Shire, probably should say get lost, and maybe some markers, those station points vaguely line up to our townships, but just go for it. What do you want to do? Take on a challenge. And certainly my son's been doing it, and so how do we just play with the mark itself? But certainly looking at making sure that we've got licensing to, you guys use it however you need, it's just a little bit of a quality mark maybe for us. But I've certainly seen models like that internationally. There's a couple of national uses in similar ways. Mountains Made in the Blue Mountains does this really well, as does the Tasmanian government as well. So, there's ways for us to really explore that brand. But again, it's just one component. The 4 components, the funding, the governance, the platform, the brand coming together, none of that kind of works in silo. It's actually all about us as a community just using those tools and shifting up the way that we go forward out of this. So it is just after 5, and I recognise that I did only book the period now up until 5, but look, as I did say, I'm certainly going to stick around. The working group will stick around if you guys just want to have an informal chat, or just, I've seen that a couple of people have put a couple of comments in the feedback. But certainly next steps from here more broadly will be around sharing this conversation. Thank you for letting me record you with the wider community. And I'll actually do that through you, please. I'll send it out directly to this group and those who are invited, and please just share that with anyone that you need to share to engage directly with, and just to bring them up to speed. certainly there are people that, I mean, I swear it's in the thousands of conversations and emails that we've had right across the community that is much more broad than this group here today. We absolutely, you know, want to be reaching those, but how deep can we reach into our community to start bringing this thinking to life? And then this investment by council, which I am really excited about. We are looking at a stage 1 launch hopefully next week. That's going to be the black and white version. No bells and whistles, just we'd like you to sign up, please. We don't really want to ask for much data at all, but again, mapping those resources is really an interesting space for us. But also the level of involvement. There's no direction here. No one's forced to get involved in this. This is just an opportunity. It's just a tool. I think about the Free Broadway Theatre program, which I've been so joyously been involved in, and that's just been about me giving the keys to the community and saying, go and do your stuff. You know, here's a bit of money, here's a bit of marketing support, but just go and do what you need to do. It's the same principle writ large for me. This is just, here's the tools, guys, you know, best funding mechanisms I can possibly wrangle for us. You know, a bit of marketing support and certainly some really incredible tech coding behind it all to enable us to emerge confidently and safely through COVID-19 and beyond. The talent, passion, altruism of this community has kept me buoyant and making me feel like I'm doing the most meaningful work of my life right now. And I just want to thank you all so much for coming along today, and again acknowledge the people who weren't able to make it, and all the people who I desperately wanted to invite to this, and just acknowledging again the confines of Zoom. I don't know if anyone would like to kind of, you know, raise a hand or say anything now, but I recognise people have got to go. If anyone wants to go, like, grab a glass of wine, is it beer o'clock? I don't know, but I might wind up the recording at this point, I think, just given that we've had some lovely feedback through the chat already, which kind of looks kind of generally positive, which is exciting. But certainly what I wanted to say just as a final wrap up is that's the point of the tool, is for us to have a space to take these conversations. So it's not just now like, oh, I've got to get my points in now about, you know, how this is working for me or otherwise, or the ideas or where it can go. The platform itself provides that space for us to take these conversations forward, not just for now, but for at least the next 3-4 years as committed to council. And I'm really looking forward to having everyone start shaping this in real time. Thanks so much for everyone's time today. I love your work. Yeah, so if anyone's got anything they want to say or add or say goodbye, please do. I'm seeing Krista there's kind of popping something in the chat. Yeah, thanks guys. I'm just really seeing, gosh, lovely feedback so far. But
you guys.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, guys. Certainly think everyone's lost in thought or something. Everyone's just lost. Deep in thought.
I mean, to say, Vicky.
Hi, Forrest.
So it's not feedback directly to what you're working on, but something that's a really big concern to me at the moment is the fact that more and more those keyboard warriors out there and letter to the editor writers are talking about how evil it is for people to get arts funding and why can't that bridge get built instead. And there's a real viciousness within our society broadly across the country around money going to arts. And I think part of the problem is that people aren't seeing themselves reflected in the art that's being made. It's not showing the broadness of diversity within the community. It has the potential to be white people in positions of power and privilege speaking to each other in a rarefied, ambiguous and difficult to connect with way. And I think what we could do as a community is start to reflect more of what's going on and have people feel more a part of it, because I think that's the only way that we can generate that groundswell of support, because without that, how do, you know, the amount of money on the table, local, state and federal and philanthropic, is just minuscule and ridiculous, and doesn't put food on the table of all of the artists making work. Artists are the biggest funders of any form of cultural production. But I think that's something that would be nice for us to grapple with and keep in mind and see what we can do to push forward. Because if we don't bring the community along with us and have the community feel reflected in what's happening, then there will just continue to be this sort of backlash of anti-art talk.
Forrest, you're speaking so to the heart of some of the aims of this program of work. Thank you so very much. I'm looking at Larry and Kim down there, just nodding away, and you know, they're reaching to the community. Broadly and deeply into the community is something to behold. Lisa D'Onofrio, even speaking to her today about her reaching to the prisons. Your own work, obviously, with new migrants and refugees, and making sure that we've got pathways. I don't even know what to call them, but Sam, I wondered if you did want to speak to us. Yeah.
This talks like very much to the sort of guts of everything that we're trying to do, Forrest. I think it's like, I think if you think of the amount of street theatre that used to be around, or the success of the circus in this town, they're the sorts of places that I'd like to go. The fact that Open Studios only happens 1 month a year, I'm not really sure why. You know, it doesn't have to be that. I think that now we're looking at what's kind of a silver lining of this time is that those conversations now are brought right to the centre of all of this. And Suzanne Donisthorpe actually had a great thing to say about that. And I think that it's all of these things are bubbling under the surface. Krista's not here now, but I know that the State Festival is something that's, you know, in my conversations, a lot of people, you know, it only happens once every 2 years for 10 days. What happens in the other 23 months and 2 weeks of that cycle, you know, for the rest of us that live here? And if we are going to have to start small, and those big opening night events and those big sort of suck up of resources and infrastructure and money and those massive big gigs are a long way away, then, you know, starting small is a great way to get art into places that art's never been before, and for especially families and kids and other cultures of the world that are less anti-art, because, you know, I don't know how that's come about, but my partner, who's from Argentina, and our time in Barcelona before this, it was a huge big shock for us getting here because of that, because of this colour bond beige kind of emphasis on sport and money and technology, and actually a kind of social distancing before the isolation kicked in. Anyway, no one hugs each other, and like, you know, warmth from all of this stuff. You know, you'd have heard a lot of people talk about how quiet it is here at night and all of that sort of stuff. Come on, let's rip it up a bit. You know, like if we've had this lid held on us, now the time to sort of start to hopefully open up some of those valves of release and have some maybe difficult conversations. Why not?
Sam, if I can add to that, and it picks up, Forrest, on how I met you through the working group of the Regional Centre for Culture and the work that was done with the state government there to kind of get us talking about small C culture. I think is something that I've really carried with me from day one in my job. And Sam, having been program manager, working on that and embedding and working and reaching into different spaces like the truck show or, you know, Mucklefest, and how do we speak to the enormity of cultural activity that goes on here, but that we may not be recognising because it's not high C art.
Can we get Suzanne Donisthorpe to say what she wanted to say?
Sorry, I didn't pick up on that. Sorry, Sue.
Right.
I've got a few queries about it. I want to know how, if all the money's going into online stuff and everything starts to freeze, and, you know, the world goes back to being what it was beforehand, with people coming to gigs and things. Will this take the money away from that sort of stuff? Because I actually think it's all very fine having online, but I am so fucking sick of it, and I just want to see stuff in the real world, and I don't want everything that we do to be absolutely about sitting in front of a screen for the rest of eternity. And while this is a fine thing, and it's got a kind of, you know, it's got a life beyond the Shire and all that kind of stuff, it still doesn't actually mean much to people in the big world. I mean, there's nothing like a real gig to make something really come to life. And I know it's impossible to kind of know what that's going to be like in the future. And this is a way of trying to solve that problem. But really, I don't think it's going to stay like this. I mean, last week we were all locked down, could never go out of our houses. Today, everybody's out. There's already the sense that the world's going back to where it was. Kids are going back to school. I just worry that we're going to set up a huge system that will end up being kind of redundant when things go back to being what they were. And also the money that would otherwise go to gigs in the real world will no longer be there. And also how much money is actually the council putting up in this? Because I didn't hear any figure coming from you, Vicky, so I'm not sure if you've got a dollar figure on it or if it's still kind of a nebulous figure and we don't really know what we're talking about. Are we talking about thousands? Are we talking about hundreds? How much money?
I'm more than happy to share all of that, Suzanne. So just firstly, in terms of actually the build of the platform itself, very little of council's money is going towards that. I'm looking at state and federal funding for that. So the primary purpose of council's investment is around the governance and underpinning administrative work around ensuring that our community does have tools around working better together. That is the primary purpose of that funding, as I said right at the beginning. And also just to note that things like the Fee Broadway Theatre at Home program, completely protected from this. This isn't taking everything away. This is discretionary funding that over the last 2 years of council particularly, I have been looking to activate to ensure, and going back and speaking, I think, to Forrest's point about the value of arts and culture and making sure that that value is very clearly defined, advocated for and championed right across government. I believe that with a community that has the highest rate of creatives per capita in the state, we've got a role to play in that. We've got a few storytellers living here. And so it's the access to the space to help build that narrative and champion that value. It's a challenge for us as a community. I've been trying to do that and I've worked really hard at that, and I've had some real traction with council, and that's why I've been able to get to this point where council has said where some governments are completely stripping their arts budgets out because they are seen as a nice to have. The work that I have done with that discretionary funding to date has built the foundation for me to have this endorsement and support from council to do this for the community. Total budget, $7,500 for the whole kit and caboodle for this financial year. That is.
The state government just gave Malden $4.5 million to fix up their streetscape.
Now, Suzanne Donisthorpe, I love you terribly, but if you'd like to interview someone at council about those kind of issues.
What I'm trying to say is the kind of, you know, you've got $7,500 and they got $4.5 million to put their PowerPoints underlined or something. It's like, it's a kind of, we're living in a kind of, it's a drop in the bucket is what I'm trying to say. And I don't know how far they can go.
And everybody here agrees with you. And so the opportunity, and I've had to check myself, like Vicky, you're an opportunist at heart, like the opportunity that COVID-19 has provided us as a community to throw such sharp focus on how we rely on cultural outputs and activity to make us feel the value of that has become so very clear to our local council here, and the need for us to nurture that and protect that is something that I want you to really take away as a collective. That when I got that response from council to say, yep, Vicky, go, I don't know, team, I must have been in shock for still about 2 weeks afterwards. You know, I was like, oh God, now I've got to deliver on this thing, you know. And fortunately, this magnificent team turned around and said, well, that's the easy bit now, Vicky. You know, and that's why they're here, because that's their skills to help deliver and drive the actual project delivery. But the foundation of the business case, I'm very proud of that piece of work, Suzanne, but it's not just a paper that went up a couple of months ago. It's 2.5 years of work and living in this Shire and having the honour of representing our community, which is such an incredible natural resource, and the recognition that has come through COVID-19. I'm just feeling so very enabled right now, and I feel like there's been some, you know, parting of the Red Seas, if I can put it that way, around a lot of this, and I really am looking forward to it. So I hope that helps a little bit, Suzanne, for now. I'm really looking forward to taking the chat further. Does anyone else want to kind of say anything at this point, or because I might finish up recording, if that's okay, and just thank everyone again. So I will do that, and stop recording.